meditatio colis mei, in conspectu tuo semper, Domine adiutor meus, et Redemptor meus. It was on this day, the 20th of August, 1153, that the by then famous Bernard of Clairvaux left this world, but it could have been otherwise. He could have passed into eternity without a trace. As it happened, he was not moved to go into the area of social life that his upbringing would have called him to, but he was moved by grace to enter in his early 20s into the nearby monastery of Citeaux, the Novum Monasterium, for he was from a chateau in the Dijon area, precisely where Citeaux is. But he did not come alone. He was already a person of great human and spiritual magnetism. He came with around 30 friends and family members, and he made this new monastery, which has been the center of Cistercian life for many centuries, a truly vibrant place, able to make new foundations. The monastery itself began as a Benedictine reform. It was an abbot, St. Robert of Molem, who founded it. He eventually returned to his own monastery, desired by his own monks. It was St. Alberic who became his successor, and the third was St. Stephen Harding, actually an Englishman, and it was under him that the Magna Carta, which united all the communities of the by then very quickly growing order, were to be united. It was the Carta Caritatis. It was the document which gave a spirit and a family feeling to all the houses, because it was very much felt that it was one big family. It was very centralized. It was based on Citeaux with a general chapter, and in between the general chapters it was visited so that the abbot immediate, that is the abbot of the founding house, would visit regularly the daughter house, and on it would go a big tree. But that was all because of the fact that the Spirit was blessing generously this new movement, which was a return to the simplicity and the authenticity of the undiluted rule of St. Benedict, without the accretions of later centuries. This was able to happen. It drew people. It was pure, as can be seen even in the architectural lines, uncluttered. And indeed, the architecture of a house can be seen, because there was there even a physical influence within the order. The houses tend to be on the same pattern. And the churches also are characteristic, even to the details with regard to the number of bells to be used. And therefore one could find the same life in every house over the world. It was also something which would have an impact on the culture and society, for by pruning drastically these accretions, for instance, processions and a large number of celebrations and supplementary prayers, which had become characteristic of the Cluniacs, the black monks, fervent and strict also in their own spirituality, that this actually became very clear it was something which opened the door to what had been cast aside partly, a large amount of manual work. And therefore that would have an impact on any area where these monks arrived. They cleared the ground, purified it, made it fertile, and they became experts, especially in these parts of the world, in sheep farming and therefore all things to do with wool. And they recruited at grassroots level. Therefore it was people from the culture that they were going to that they actually attracted to themselves, which explains how they were popular and they were immediately an appeal to any person who wanted to enter. Indeed, it was possible for anyone to enter because of the way in which they developed a system for receiving non-choir monks, the conversi, those who had not come straight from the monastic formation of a school or a cloister, but were brought from lay life without the capacity quite often even to read, but they were given a simple form of prayer, Our Fathers and Hail Marys, etc., and a life of silence and penance and charity and a protection from the outside world, which kept them safe unto glory. But these wore a brown habit, and they were able to make great leaps with regard to the manual work involved, whole areas being cleared. It was therefore a system which functioned very well. Now, Bernard de Clairvaux, he was sent after 3 years in the house where he entered, Citeaux, to be the first abbot of a new foundation, Clairvaux. And from there came many houses, and from those houses came other houses. He continued to draw as a magnet right through his life. Indeed, as time went on, because of his talents and gifts, and also his links, he was called upon more and more to be an influence even in the political sphere. He was a great preacher, and when he was passing around, it is said that mothers of families would hide their children lest they be caught by this magnet who might contaminate them with a dangerous vocation. They would be lost forever behind a cloister, so the mothers thought. He was the great preacher even of the crusade, the Second Crusade, but commissioned by the Pope to do so. He could have easily become bishop, but his desire was to be with his brethren. He was very austere, but he was also a great mystic, an element sometimes forgotten. He was, when in prayer, able to be at prayer, and despite his many responsibilities and burdens, when he went into the church, the monastic church, he would take the holy water at the stoop at the door, coming from the cloister into the church area, and he would say to his problems, "Stay here, I will take you up again when I come out." And so in church he was what he was, an earthly angel, and he would want his brethren to do the same. There is a whole family heirloom of things that have passed down, for instance in mystical experiences within the Cistercians, of things that are known amongst the Cistercians themselves, what would have happened over the centuries. At La Trappe we had, for instance, a certain Frère Tarsissus, who would have been a holy, holy man, who died in odour of sanctity way back. But there were many, many saints, and it was known also that the great sanctity often was to be found in the lay brothers. There were people who could easily have become priests, but they opted to be hidden as lay brothers in service and hiddenness. But they did not know each other all that well. Indeed, one did not know the surname of one's confrère quite often. One had no recreation, therefore one did not know his past life. And one does not need to know all that much either when it comes to that. because the past was regarded as being part of the world, and one was dead to the world. Indeed, in the great reform of the Cistercians themselves, under l'Abbé de Rancé at La Trappe, they were considered to be completely dead to the world, and if the parents of a monk died, it would be announced in chapter that the mother or father of one of the brethren had died, and they were invited to pray for that person, but the person would not know who it was. That was the extent to which they were completely separated from the outside world. Under l'Abbé de Rancé, the tendency was not to ordain, because there wasn't all that much possibility of study. Those who came in, priests, were able to be used, but the emphasis was on penance and work, and much prayer in choir. But l'Abbé de Rancé was very much loved by his community, despite his great austerity. We know that from testimonies. And he also drew. Indeed, there was a time when the Trappists drew so much that even Carthusians might be tempted to leave to join them. Now, with regard to the Cistercian life, it drew and continues to draw when it is authentic. From Clairvaux, they came here to Ireland. They came to nearby Mellifont, very close to us here. From Clairvaux, they came to England, to Waverley. It's down there in the southeast. There are still ruins there, but Waverley House right now is owned by evangelicals. It is a conference centre. At least there's prayer going on there. They came to Wales, also from Clairvaux, to Whitland, Hen Gwynardaf in Welsh, and to there have come the Cistercian nuns. They opted to go there from another house which had become too big for them or not convenient, and they are close to the brethren of Cordy Island, because the abbot who founded Cordy, he was an Anglican Benedictine, Dom Aylward Carlisle. When he and his community essentially became Catholics, very few didn't, in 1913, they were living then in difficult circumstances because it was paid for by Anglican benefactors who weren't amused. Eventually they had to leave in the early 20s and went to Prynich, but then Cistercian Trappists from Chimay in Belgium came and took over Cordy, where they still are now, but they are close to these nuns on the mainland. Cordy actually is a place where one can find the Cistercian life, because geographically it is separated, and they have tried to keep things strict and pure there. And they also have kept the timetable. They get up still at 3:15. That's important, because the Cistercian night was a return to the rule of St. Benedict, and it is important for the daily life, because if that goes, or is brought too close to dawn, then that gratuitousness of night prayer is lost. And even in the renewed constitutions it is there, and with some insistence, the prayer of the night. The Cistercian night is very beautiful, a time of intimacy. It's all in the great silence and very vertical. And it is still well able to form friends of God. But it has to be carried on in the course of the day. And that is the bit that is at risk, for if the rule of silence becomes so elastic that it becomes a glorified recreation, then there is no point in entering that particular house. The Lord will send the vocations to a house where silence is to perceived to be what it is. Interesting to note that the silent houses like Sept-fonts are drawing vocations, whereas others who have become too elastic do not. And the reason obviously is that the Lord wants honour and glory, and he wants friends, and so he will favour by his vocations those houses which are likely to enable that to happen. Because in 5 hours of manual work, with the mouth shut and the mind orientated towards heaven, in a simplicity of repetitive work, there is a bonding, as on Mount Athos. In 5 hours of chit-chat, the church is not served, and so why should the Lord send vocations there? And they could be sent to another house where he will receive his due. because the contemplative life is a risk. It's all or nothing, and there's no point in entering without that optic of becoming a contemplative. One can be a good layman elsewhere. And also a danger in our time is that the type of work has become not quite so simple. If it becomes heavily industrialized, complicated, computerized, even noisy, with much anxiety in the mind, then it is not actually favouring the contemplative life. If also the timetable is pushed around so as to satisfy the needs of work excessively, then again the balance is being lost. Even St. Benedict himself insists that nothing should take precedence over the work of God. The timetable was absolute, and that was the giving to God of his rights, the Opus Dei par excellence, the work of God. Thomas Merton, a great Cistercian writer, does indicate well the importance of the quiet manual work, where for hours the monks were alone with God. There is no compartment, prayer, work. It's all one linear movement, all just a means of being in union with God. And the fraternity is important, and one does feel it in a good Cistercian monastery. There is that feeling of belonging, for charity was the basis already in the Carta Caritatis, and that charity is expressed not by chit-chat, but by genuine care for the need of the brethren, the which comes out in confession and in spiritual direction, for the abbot and novice master do exercise the charism of paternity, and they generate souls in Christ. The Cistercian life also means silence with regard to writing. Letters are rare because the pen is a distracting element. The mind goes through the pen into the world. One big area of danger now is to bring the world in through modern means of communication. And if that is felt to be a need, one needs also to ask why. The classical package received from the distant past works still, and one needs to ask why exactly should it not in our generation. There is a difference between a monastery which has a television and one that doesn't. The television is an exciting object in a monotonous day, and if one has it, it's difficult afterwards to settle down to the intensity of the interior life that one had before. It has an effect, a huge effect actually, on the contemplative soul. So it is something to be aware of before, just like that, one says, yes, for the sake of being informed, we'll bring in the Trojan horse. Gustate et videte quoniam suavis est Dominus, beatus vir qui sperat in eo. Caritas eramus, caritas Deus ibest, caritas eramus, caritas Deus ibest. ubi caritas amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est. Mischief at Mellifont. When Dom Amedeo, a Cistercian friend from Italy, had expressed the wish to celebrate the office of sext in the ruins, he was duly told that this was not permissible, and so we proceeded illegally to find a corner where the permissible could be permitted. These stones have heard before these melodies, and silence ever old, yet echoes well the chant of brethren young, for stones like these were not meant thus to lie, for very hell alone knew these to silence, where for long these same chants once echoed, vibrant each with tremors of great age. The sage's song, that bright illumined copies sight did teach. And brother that helps brother in high sin of strange deranged magic lately banned, for that howled sounds electric and sweet din it suited not, shall suited placid stand, in colour known, in mischief known, alone, and not alone, upon naught but a stone. Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, espes nostra salve. A te clamamus exunes spirime, a te suspiramus, gementes et flentes, in ac lacrimarum vale. Ea ergo advocata nostra, illos tuos misericordes oculos ad nos converte. En Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Virgo